Lockdown in progress, investing during quarantine, education online. This is Flipping Ground Bahama News for week ending April 10th, 2020. I am Yasmin Popescu with these and other stories. Thank you for joining us. Well, it's Good Friday and day 2 of the national lockdown that is expected to continue through Easter season for Christians and Passover for Jews. And as it goes through the rest of April, it'll also encompass Ramadan for Muslims. And according to Prime Minister, lockdown will continue every weekend during the month of April. This is the greatest effort to combat COVID-19 pandemic.
I must advise this House and the Bahamian people that due to the fact that they are asymptomatic carriers of the virus and based upon medical advice, the competent authority may further impose sometimes stronger lockdown periods over the coming week. This may require the extension of the proclamation and associated documents. As of Wednesday, the 8th of April, 2020, starting at 9 p.m., a complete lockdown will again be implemented and will end at 5 a.m. Tuesday, the 14th of April. Mr. Speaker, this may seem somewhat hard to some in that we're talking about Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, a 5-day stretch. But Mr. Speaker, this is essential because there is what we call a super virus, a super spreading, a super spreader. Mr. Speaker, a super spreader may be asymptomatic, but a super spreader may be in contact with many areas and has the potential to infect thousands of individuals. And it's essential that we lock down so that we search aggressively for the super spreaders. So yes, we may experience 5 days of pain, but a lifetime of resolution. At the end of the lockdown period, the 24-hour curfew will again resume. Mr. Speaker, I want to inform this House that lockdown will again occur every weekend for the remainder of April, beginning at 9 p.m. on Fridays to 5 a.m. on Monday.
That was Prime Minister during his address at the House of Assembly on Monday. Following this, a press conference was held on Tuesday after chaos ensued at various stores in New Providence and in Grand Bahama with a new demand that everyone wear masks while shopping. With this settled by Wednesday morning, the new system was put in place. The Office of the Prime Minister in Grand Bahama, in conjunction with the Royal Bahamas Police Force, implemented a ticketing system at the 3 major food stores in Grand Bahama: Costrite, Solomon's Lucaya, and Sawyer's, if they chose to wait in their cars until their numbers were called. Shoppers were reminded of the extended shopping hours and to continue to maintain social distancing. This solution was most enjoyed by all shoppers who approached the system with better moods to deal with the lines. From the Prime Minister on Monday afternoon, it was said shopping according to your last name had been exempted for Family Island communities. As with all, the store owners are asked to manage shoppers on strict physical distancing protocols already in place, based on specific needs related to fuel, cargo, and inter-island ferry services.
We would like for each and every individual visiting the supermarket to wear a mask. That is for your good, to try and protect you. We would allow the supermarkets to open on Thursday. On Thursday, the supermarket shifts would be divided into 2 shifts. The 6 to 12 a.m. would be utilized to accommodate the members of the police force, members of the defense force, and the health professionals. All supermarkets have been asked and will remain open rather than until 7 p.m. They would remain open until 10 p.m. to accommodate individuals. And the police have been informed so that they would do whatever is necessary to ensure your safety. So 6 to 12 on Thursday is designated for that group that I mentioned. And between 12 midday and 10 p.m. on Thursday, the supermarkets would remain open to accommodate the essential services as in the order. And that group would include the fire services, the Department of Correctional Services, the National Insurance Board, Department of Social Services, Department of Environmental Health Services, Department of Immigration, Customs Department, Waste Disposal and Sanitation Companies, essential offices of any water, electricity, or other sector encompassing the provision of electronic communications, including print and electronic media. There is sufficient food in the country for every individual. There is not a food shortage, and that is not an issue. We feel that once we extend the supermarket and remove certain sectors, essential service and police, defense force, etc., out of the alphabetical system, that would immediately reduce the load of individuals visiting our supermarkets. I again repeat, there are no shortages, and we ask you to adhere to the social or physical distancing. If you don't, all the work that the government has done in protecting you can be lost overnight. And we do not want a meltdown within our society as we're seeing around the world. We see examples of some countries losing up to 1,000 individuals in one given day. We do not want that to happen. And if you adhere to the principles and the regulations that the government is putting forth, we feel that we would be safe.
Since that time, globally, we have seen over 1.5 million people all over the world who have contracted the virus. And where once China was the leader in patients, within the past week, the United States is now the leader with, at last count, almost 500,000 contracted and over 16,000 deaths, followed by Spain with over 150,000 and almost the same amount of deaths as America, with over 15,000. Behind them is Italy, which has the most deaths overall, 18,000. Locally, last week we had 28 confirmed cases, 4 deaths, and in the last count, last evening, there were 40 cases, of which 5 were totally recovered, 7 died, and 28 sick, according to our COVID-19 tracker. Many persons have little understanding of the reason for the lockdown and the progression of the virus, but it's said that it takes about 5 days for the illness to reveal itself after being caught, but The wider number is between 1 and 14 days. Then symptoms most likely to present themselves are fever, dry cough, fatigue, nausea or vomiting, nasal congestion, diarrhea, and conjunctival congestion. According to experts, it is noted that most people infected with COVID-19 virus have mild disease and recover. Experts say that approximately 80% of laboratory-confirmed patients have had mild to moderate disease, which includes non-pneumonia and pneumonia cases. 13.8% have severe disease and 6.1% are critical respiratory failure, septic shock, and/or multiple organ dysfunction failure. Asymptomatic infection has been reported, but the majority of the relatively rare cases who are asymptomatic on the date of identification report went on to develop the disease. The proportion of truly asymptomatic infections is unclear, but appears to be relatively rare and does not appear to be a major driver of transmission. Individuals at highest risk for severe disease and death include people over 60 years and those with underlying conditions such as hypertension, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, chronic respiratory disease, and cancer. Disease in children appears to be relatively rare and mild, with approximately 2.4% of the total reported cases reported among individuals aged under 19 years. A very small proportion of those aged under 19 years have developed severe 2.5 or critical disease 0.2%. Given this information, if the disease was contracted at any time prior to the quarantine, symptoms should have begun to show, and those in contact during those first few days are more likely to begin presenting now. But it's important to keep track of those who you have been in contact with so that if these signs begin to present, you are able to track it for others. In the latest from the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros said, Dr. Tedros, in his address this week, has called for all nations to put aside politics to address COVID-19.
At national level, we should be able to work across party lines, across phases, across other differences that we have, across ideology. When there is a crack at the national level between political parties, between religious groups, or between other groups, that's when the virus gets a crack that it can exploit and defeat us. So number one is the national unity, working across party lines. I was a politician. I know how difficult this could be. I know it. Although it's difficult, it's the right thing to do. At the end of the day, the people belongs to all political parties. The focus of all political parties should be to save their people. Please don't politicize this virus. It exploits the differences you have at the national level. If you want to be exploited, and if you want to have many more body bags, then you do it. If you don't want many more body bags, then you refrain from politicizing it. My short message is, please quarantine politicizing COVID. The unity of your country will be very important to defeat this dangerous virus. Without unity, we assure you, even any country that may have a better system, will be in trouble and more crisis. That's our message. Unity at national level, no politicizing, no need to use COVID to score political punches. No need. You have many other ways to prove yourselves. This is not the one to use for politics. It's like playing with fire. So more than ever before, national unity is important if we care about our people.
We're taking a break, and when we return, banking instructions, an investment idea, and more from the House of Assembly.
Flipping Ground Bahama News is a Media Unlimited production. If you see news in the making or want to advertise, call 242-727-6909. That's 242-727-6909.
Welcome back. A very generous business person in Grand Bahama is putting their money where their mouth is to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic on this island.
According to a release from the Grand Bahama Port Authority, the Grand Bahama Disaster Relief Foundation, the charitable arm of the Port Authority, received a donation of $25,000 from LNet Maritime for the purchase of masks, which will be immediately donated to the Grand Bahama Health Services. President Ian Royal said, "The COVID-19 pandemic is without precedent, and there has never been a more critical time for the people and businesses of our island to work together and support each other." With this generous donation, LNet Maritime has demonstrated a real spirit of community in support of our dedicated frontline workers. According to the release, medical-grade masks are a critical piece of personal protective equipment required to safeguard the health of nurses, doctors, and other frontline workers as they care for COVID-19 patients and all Grand Bahamians under their care. Ellie Hepburn, LNet Maritime's president and CEO, is quoted saying, "We believe in strong relationships and community. It's a difficult time for the LNet Maritime team and for all Grand Bahamians, and we're doing what we can to help ensure that the island's health resources are protected so that they can do their life-saving work. We need to look after each other and work together, and that's what this donation is all about." In expressing her appreciation, Sarah St. George, Vice President of the GBPA, said, "Mr. Hepburn and his team at LNet Maritime have been a valued member of the Grand Bahama business community for many years, and this kind-hearted gesture is another example of their lasting and unwavering dedication to the well-being of all Grand Bahamians." The release concluded by saying the Grand Bahama Disaster Relief Foundation has begun the process of procuring medical-grade masks and will ensure timely delivery to the medical services.
Banking during this time will be challenging for all, but we do have word from the Clearing Bank Association.
The Clearing Banks Association, as always, issued an announcement for the holiday stating all banks will be temporarily closed to the public commencing April 9th, 2020, with operations to resume on April 14th, 2020. The announcement went on to say that they recognize that direct access to finances is important, so recommended debit and credit cards to be used for point-of-sale purchases where possible, mobile or online banking for transfers, online, local, and international wire transfers, ATM withdrawals and deposits, night deposit facilities, and contacting advice centers for inquiries. Something it noted was that normal service delivery time frames will be affected by night deposit credits to accounts and release of holds for automated deposits. The announcement said all banks are working together to ensure that interbank transactions are completed as soon as possible. During this time, commercial banks will not be able to facilitate certain requests, such as checkbook and bank statement requests, even if ordered online, until the curfew is lifted. In closing, they reminded the public that they should adhere to the advice of the public officials about the dangers of COVID-19 and practice social distancing at all times.
Recently, there was another push for the Bahamas registered stock offering.
On Wednesday, the Central Bank of the Bahamas pitched stock offerings that would start on Wednesday and continue through to April 17, 2020, with a minimum investment of $100 and a fixed interest rate as high as 5.69%, with interest being paid semi-annually. According to its pitch, Bahamas Registered Stock, or BRS, are medium to long-term government debt securities. On their site, it is noted that the central bank will not be accepting applications after 3 p.m. daily. To apply, you have to have a Bahamian passport and/or National Insurance Smart Card, along with a Bahamian driver's license, national identity card, permanent residence permit, other national passport, or spousal permit.
The need to work on becoming self-sufficient was again addressed in the House of Assembly by Minister of Agriculture, Honorable Michael Pintard.
During his presentation to the House of Assembly, the Minister of Agriculture, Honorable Michael Pintard, gave more on plans for farming in the future.
The Emergency Food Plan, Mr. Speaker, is an attempt to ensure that we can increase production not in all food groups, but to target those groups where there is a reasonable opportunity for import substitution. In other words, where we have a reasonable chance of producing in adequate amounts, cost effectively, those fruits, vegetables, value-added foods, and livestock that we can produce here in the Bahamas that we are presently importing from overseas. Mr. Speaker, we have conducted a study in conjunction with the Food and Agriculture Organization, most recently with the IDB, with assistance from CADI and IECA, and we are clear on what those food items are that we have an opportunity in terms of import substitution. Mr. Speaker, the food drum produced by Ministry of Health is a very useful tool, and it has identified 7 main groups that I listed in last week's presentation. Mr. Speaker, please note that in order to accelerate food production, the focus needs to be on 1, strengthening the production systems of existing farmers through the provision of inputs, seeds, to some extent, guaranteed food prices. Thirdly, that the government, where it purchases food, must earmark funds to purchase those foods locally. The provision of feed for our livestock throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Mr. Speaker, strengthening the production system on all of our islands, but in particular, those islands that have already demonstrated the ability over time to produce the various foods identified in the food groups. Among them will no doubt be Andros, Alco, Grand Bahama, Cat Island, Exuma, Eleuthera. Nevertheless, the evaluation by our technical team have looked at other islands not identified in this short list, and they too will in fact be assisted in strengthening their production capacity.
We'll take another break, and when we return, national and regional news.
make you a star. We help you make your own video programs, podcasts, blog, vlog, press releases, and more. Call for more information, 727-6909.
Welcome back. In national news, the toll of the pandemic has struck us in many areas, and in particular in education, to which the Minister of Education explained what his ministry has been doing to assist the young students of this country.
Speaker, may I respectfully advise that in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas today we have approximately 100,000 students, 50,000 of which in the public sector, 25,000 in the private schools, and another 25 in tertiary institutions, primarily BTVI and the University of the Bahamas. And as you were aware, sir, the ministry closed its doors on the 16th of March as a result of the pandemic upon us. But before this virus outbreak, the ministry had launched its virtual school in September of last year, engaging ultimately over 1,600 students, primarily those in remote districts in our country. In the immediate aftermath of Hurricane Dorian, the online platform was needed to provide instruction for the storm-affected students, Abaco and Grand Bahama. So today, sir, there is an immediate and urgent need for educators across the Bahamas to deliver online lessons to all students, those from pre-K to grade 12, utilizing this virtual school platform. And since the closure of school some weeks ago, the ministry's leadership team of teachers and curriculum officers, administrators, technical officers have met and have prepared volumes of material for students for all grade levels, as well as sourced materials available from sources around the globe to augment and supplement the ministry's online instructional paradigm. Technical officers met over 2 days, Monday the 16th, Tuesday the 17th, to develop a plan, the way forward. And as a result, those curriculum officers established teams of teachers to develop content for the placement on the online virtual platform.
In the region, Governor of the Turks and Caicos gave orders on the Easter weekend for that community, which has 8 confirmed cases up to midweek.
The Easter weekend is traditionally one where business activity slows considerably. In the belief that you'll meet us halfway, we want to use this Easter period to just slow still further the amount of movement and commingling on the island. Over this Easter period, you may still exercise in the morning and evening within the set times, and if you hold a specific exemption, such as needing to care for someone that needs care, you may attend to their needs, but you must have an exemption. There will also be some businesses that will still have to function, and they're obvious. Medical facilities, including doctors' offices and hospitals, hotels where guests are in residence, ferry services for emergency cases, commercial aviation, airports, and security service businesses. But beyond those, we are, though, going to close down all other businesses for 2.5 days. This will be the afternoon, starting at noon on Maundy Thursday, the 9th of April, all of Good Friday, the 10th of April, and Easter Sunday, the 12th of April. Over this Easter period, essential businesses that have been operating during this period may though operate on Saturday the 11th of April and Easter Monday the 13th of April. I'll say that again in another way. All business except that small number that are exempted will be closed from afternoon on Thursday. They'll stay closed on Friday. They will open on Saturday. They'll close on Sunday. Then they'll open again on Monday. We do this for 2 reasons. We have 8 confirmed cases on the island, and we now have evidence of on-island transmission. In other words, a small number of these individuals had no travel history, and so they've been exposed in TCI. In a measured way, we want to yet further put distance between our population at the places our population most come into contact with strangers, or indeed friends. At present, the most likely places this happens are the businesses that are open. The second reason is that while many have been able to have considerable time at home with family, this has not been true for our frontline services. Police and immigration officers have not only been working extremely long hours securing the lockdown and curfew, but have had the extra challenge of dealing with the interception of sloops and subsequent repatriations. Others have had long hours in other essential services where we have reduced staffing to a bare minimum. Utilising this Easter period gives us the opportunity to let these great people take a breath and seriously reduce the traffic on the road. People won't have the opportunity to visit a business because there'll be no business to visit, and that will allow our frontline services some space to refresh. There will of course be no let up in policing, just matters will be more manageable for those on duty, and our marine branch will remain, as it always is, primed and deployed. These decisions were made by the National Emergency Operations Centre, chaired by the Premier and myself, and agreed in a Cabinet paper. Regulations have been drafted and will be in force covering this change and published. We're giving notice this evening, so again, you can use the next day and a half to prepare sensibly. There's no need to panic buy or rush. You've all walked out for yourself that the stores are well stocked and will continue to be so. Stay calm, as they say, and carry on. Now a look ahead. Given that almost every other country in the world has extended its lockdown period, it's not unreasonable for many to ask what Cabinet's view will be on this when ours expires in the middle of next week. The answer is that that decision has not been taken. The more data we have in making this decision, the better. It will, though, be taken this week or weekend by Cabinet and communicated early to you. So again, if preparations are needed, they can be done in a sensible, measured way. The Cabinet will be strongly guided by health on this, and we've asked for a very detailed paper laying out the case for and against systematically. All in all, though, I do want to say that myself, the Premier, the Commissioner and Minister of Health judge overall compliance has been extraordinarily good. We're up at around 90% or above, and that does give us the very best chance of defeating this.
We now take you to our 7-day weather forecast. That's all for this week. For Flipping Grand Bahama News, I'm Yasmin Popescu. Look forward to seeing you next week.